Okay, so we're going to talk about the arrow magic. I don't even know where to begin. The reason why this is so, I guess, unnaturally difficult for me to talk about is that any time I've used arrow magic, it's been with the worst kind of people that I've had to use it against. Like the lowest of lows, the most evil of evil people. And every time I think about arrow magic, it brings back every single person that was just horridly evil that I've had to deal with. And it's not so much dealing with the act of dealing with them that bothers me. It's knowing that people like that exist to a level that I can't even fathom. I don't want to, but the sheer number of how many of them exist out there, it makes me so rageful. And that's why I almost cannot do this without having some kind of, I mean, you can probably already see it in my face, and I can't hide it. I can't hide, because it's been literally my survival through childhood, and then it was my survival through adulthood for different reasons with different people. It went beyond my exceptionally evil family and into random people that I would meet, and I would give all of these people, time and time again, way too much patience. And eventually it just exploded. So yeah, it's very difficult for me to talk about arrow magic, because it's one thing when I recount one event one time in my life, but when you talk about this as a whole, that is my entire life, that's every moment of my life. I mean, maybe not every waking moment, but it's the majority of my life. And it's like all of these different memories come flooding in at once. I was born with arrow magic as just a ability, but it wasn't an arrow like I was talking about before. It was more like a disorganized bomb, because I didn't even know I was doing it, and I didn't even know what it was for the longest time. And unfortunately it took, and I talked about this in the other video, the general video, it took me making a mistake and having something innocent in the way and getting injured by that war magic that I didn't even realize I was doing, to realize what happened. And while I most definitely didn't invent the idea of it being an arrow, that's this very, very ancient idea. The magic on its own, without guidance, is like just a ticking time bomb. And I don't know how else to put it other than that, really. It's not necessarily something that, doesn't have to be something that you're sourcing. What I'm trying to say is you conjure it, you create it, from anger or from some other immense emotion. You don't necessarily have to find a source for it like you do in the ricochet shield, like you do in the transference of energy. How these are created is just a raw elemental like emotion, and that rage is enough to create that either arrow or explosion. And whatever you're thinking when you release that arrow or throw that dagger, I do use it interchangeably, whatever you do, most people see it as arrow, so that's why I try to say arrow, but they're both the same thing, I just use it. So anyway, when you're throwing that dagger, assuming that you've got focus, and it's not a bomb, and assuming it is a dagger, when you throw that and you realize whatever you're thinking in the immediate moment, whatever, it doesn't even have to be, I've gotten so rageful before with people physically hurting me over and over and over again. I've gotten so rageful before that I didn't even have words in my head. I just had thoughts of what I wished would happen to them. And when you're throwing that dagger, whatever pain you wish upon them, you simply have to wish it. You simply have to think it. And the rage just kind of does the rest. It's not always conjured by rage. It can be conjured by really any emotion, even love. But it's usually has to be conjured by your emotion. It's something that cannot be created from something else, really. I mean, if your intent, if your thought is to give them your pain, then most definitely it does have that aspect in it. But what makes it fly and what makes it a lethal dagger, and what makes you be able to throw it, isn't something like the pain, like we talked about in the transference of energy. You turn the pain into the weapon. Well, the weapon's already a weapon without the pain. If you add the pain, if you latch the pain onto it, then that's just an added thing. So I can tell you right now that this kind of magic, unfortunately, even if you don't intend for someone innocent standing in the way in between you and them, even if you don't intend without direction, you can hurt the innocent, even if you don't intend to. And I talked about that. If you want to hear more about that story, I talked about that in the other video, in the general video about war magic. I talked about why it's so important to have that direction. Some magic, a lot of magic, if you have the intent, then it prevents any kind of accident like that. But unfortunately, this kind of magic doesn't. And so what you need to do, and it always helped me to kind of close my eyes when I was first learning this. What you need to do is you need to envision it almost like an arrow that has a mind of its own, and it can just manipulate it around. You send it in the direction of the enemy, but as soon as it gets close to something innocent, it'll just go right through it, right around it, right over it. It's just meandering like this, missing anything innocent in its path, and then eventually, finally, it gets to its target. And you just have to, the entire time, until you can sense that it's hit the target, you have to, those basic skills we talked about, you have to be able to sense the energies, because you have to sense it skipping over everything that's innocent, and then you have to sense when has it actually finally reached its target. And at the moment it reaches the target, it will stick in it and it will stay in it. It won't come out. That's just kind of how it works. I mean, it's final. It's set in stone. So once you throw something like a war dagger, like a war magic dagger, you can't unthrow it. The only thing that you might be able to do, if you make a mistake, is with transference of energy, maybe cleanse and take out all of that way. But the damage is quick, and so you'd have to do that almost immediately. But what I'm trying to say is, once it leaves your hand, so to speak, once it leaves you and you've thrown it, you can't just abort mission. It will get to the target. It will continue on the path. There's nothing you can do to divert it. It will continue on that path until it gets to the target. If you're of ill intent, then to get it to the target is nearly impossible, unless perhaps you're in luck, because whatever the target is also of ill intent. This is strong magic, and ill intent is always weak magic. And even if you can get that arrow to fly where you want it to go, usually pure intent is going to have some sort of shield around it. And if it doesn't, then that is not going to stay. It's going to dissipate pretty quickly, usually. It's going to dissipate, and then it's going to come right back to you, because that's just kind of how threefolds and the center star and my turn for the center of the universe, that's how all that stuff works. The universe in general makes sure if anyone does something like that to an innocent, that pain gets sent right back to them. Usually they're not even strong enough to be able to conjure this. And if they are, they'll only be strong enough maybe once or twice in their life, and then they'll have to have too many threefolds to ever be able to do it again. So you have to make sure you have sacred permission to do something like that, obviously. Otherwise there'll be consequences if you do it out of ill intent.